Okay, thank you very much for the quick turnaround on this. I'm glad to see, I believe, everyone is currently present. So we're going to call this meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. As I said, we can confirm that we have quorum because I believe we have all 10 of us here on the Zoom right now. There aren't, obviously nobody is absent since we're all here. I also want to acknowledge that we are joined in this room and on Zoom by many of our staff members, including all of our department heads. I'm going to take one quick second to say an editorial. The last 2 or 3 weeks has been a real joy for me to work with this group of people because this is not obviously an easy transition for anybody to come in here as new councilors or a new mayor. And our staff have done just a tremendous job of making this as easy as possible. So on behalf of all of the on council, I want to thank you very much for the transitional assistance. I'll read the land acknowledgement statement, please, if I will. We want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Next is the public notice that today's meeting is being live streamed, and it's recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in this open meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. I wish to advise that we did seek public input on this agenda at TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. And as usually is the case, we did receive no comments back in response to that request. There is actually, I believe, more than one supplementary agenda. And to acknowledge that, I know, do we need to read through all of this on the supplementary agenda or just understand the fact that? Okay, that's fair. So on the agenda or on the website, which you no doubt have seen, the supplementary agenda touches on a bunch of stuff. There's an update to item 9.A.8. There was an update to item 9.8. Sorry, point A.9. There's an update to item 9.A.10. And then there are 2 or 3 updates on the closed session agenda, touching on, I believe, 3 matters that are subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary to make decisions or understand those solicitor-client matters. And there is another one, which is a litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals that will be taken up and closed as well. That having been said, I'm going to ask, having heard all of this and looked at the agenda and looked online yesterday at supplementary and the closed agenda, does anyone present have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? All right, I do. And I think now is as good a time as any. On one of the matters under item 9 sub A sub 7, my spouse is one of the applicants for appointment to a board, so I will recuse myself when that matter comes up. And I've asked the deputy mayor to step in my place and take care of that matter with me outside of this room, so I'll have no influence on it. Next thing I want to point out, as we've become used to this under these current situation, the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. And voting, please, all members, physically raise your hand until I've confirmed the vote. And if the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, which is not to be considered a recorded vote. Okay, I think I've covered most of that. I am wearing a mask today. If anybody has any trouble hearing me, please let me know, and I'll try to keep myself as clear as I can. And hopefully won't be wearing it next time we're here. Going to move on to the agenda for today's meeting. The next interest or point of interest is the invited delegation. We have one. How do I see where we are on the? Okay, she's there. So I'm going to welcome Julia Booth, who is the Bala Park Cottagers Association. She is attending to speak to the Currie Street Landing issue. Julia, are you there? There we are. Welcome. All right, we can see you, but you must be having audio issues.
She's unmuted, but it's audio.
Connecting to audio. Here we go. All right, now you're muted.
Oh, no.
Are we unmuted?
There we go. All right.
Oh, excellent. We're kind of techno peasants here. If my 12-year-old grandson was here, we'd have been fine. Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm the president of the Bala Park Cottagers Association, and as such, we're concerned about our. I am.
So we can hear you, but could you just share your name and your address for us, please?
Yeah, it's Al Booth and Julia Booth, and we live at 2 Brobes Forest Crescent in Bracebridge. And our cottage is M125 on Bala Park Island.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. So I was hoping to talk to you about the new bylaws that are a result of the new transportation initiative that's being put forward in the District of Muskoka. And as such, the new bylaws have changed some of the, I guess, the customs that the folks on Bala Park are used to. We acknowledge the fact that you need to have a general set of rules that everybody follows and everybody can expect an outcome when they do follow those rules. However, I guess what we're concerned about is that our landing is a little bit different than most, in as much as our landing does not freeze over totally. So in the winter, when we leave the boats at the landing in the designated parking spots, we can flip over the tin boat and row over to the island and check our cottages. And some people actually spend New Year's and Christmas there. It's not really safe to walk in because we have to come in by the railway tracks. So that's the access that some people use. If that bylaw keeps us from storing our boats there, then the folks that want to go across are going to have to trailer a boat up in the wintertime and put it in the water. Now, that may not seem like a problem, except when Currie Street is plowed, a lot of the times they plow the snow down and mountain it up, and you have to climb over this 7 or 8 foot high snowdrift, where if we were allowed to leave our boats where they have been over the years, that wouldn't be an issue. We just basically take a shovel with us, clear out a small path and go off the dock. Is there a possibility that we could have some input as regards the rules that are going to bind that Currie Street Landing? Clear out a small path and go off the dock.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thank you very much for your input. I certainly understand your concern. I want to first find out if anyone else on council has any questions for the booths while they're here on the phone. No, I don't see any more questions. Oh, sorry, it's Councilor Zavitz. Sorry, I missed you.
Thank you, and through you. Hi, Al and Julia. Good to see you here. They're here somewhat on my recommendation. They've called, they've spoken to me a number of times. And the issue is, just as Al has so aptly laid out, it is a very unique place to be in that I would call it a river, but it's likely not. The channel down towards Dudley Bay doesn't freeze over. So if there was an allowance right now, what Al is talking about is that given that we've moved on things like Whiting's Beach, where people have left their trailers, boats over a extended period of time, and we've towed them away, they're looking for consideration to leave these few boats there over the winter months. And again, I said to him, the transportation master plan will contemplate this on a much larger scale once we get into that in the first quarter or half of 2023. I guess the ask could be, could they leave a small number of boats, perhaps no more than the boats that are left there spring, summer, fall, to use in the manner that Al has laid out here. I guess that's the ask of this council. And I guess it would be as simple as not needing a motion. Perhaps we just simply didn't ticket and or remove the 4 metal 12-foot boats and 3 canoes that might end up there. Perhaps Al could give us information more specifically about what craft will be there, but I don't believe it's a flotilla. I think it's a very few nominal amount of boats, but that's the consideration. Thank you.
It is a nominal number of boats. We have already removed the boats that we know belong to our Cottage Park Islanders, and we put them on private property to adhere to the requests of the bylaw officer for this year. And so the people that want to get over to their cottage now will have to bring that boat down off that property up on Currie Street and put it in the water if they so desire. But what we're looking for is future consideration. There would probably be at the most 4 small metal boats that can be rowed over, and at the most 2 canoes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Councilor Zavitz. Councilor Nishikawa, you have your hand up as well.
Thank you. Through you, it's not, I guess it's a question, because I had a concern. We made a service change. People have been accessing Bala Park Island through the winter for years and years, like 30 years that I'm aware of. And we made a service change. And in fact, it's impacting those property owners. And I believe that we should be allowed, and I will go even back to conversations about Whiting's Beach, for instance. It was meant to be, there used to be tinnies there. It wasn't about motorboats and all of like a larger thing. So I do believe that there's a need for some form of allowance, if you call it that. I'm not sure. I'm sure somebody legally is going to say, oh, this is a horrible thing that we're doing. But in fact, it's been going on for years and years and years. And I don't know that this service change was really, the community had really much input on how it would affect them.
Thank you, Councilor Nishikawa. I actually think the request is pretty straightforward and understood. And hopefully there's a simple solution. I'm going to actually ask our Director of Public Works, Mr. Becking, perhaps to chime in, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As members of the current council who were on the previous council, you'll recall that we passed a bylaw that authorized staff to remove boats and other items that were deemed to have been abandoned. And there was a process set out for us to give notice of intent to do so, and then to grant staff the authority after following that procedure to remove whatever the offending items were. I am aware that the deputants is correctly characterizing the situation in that it's been an ongoing practice. Council is also aware that the Transportation Master Plan, which is currently being developed, is to address, as I believe His Worship has indicated, a broader set of guidelines with respect to the use of public lands for accessing private island properties. If council is inclined to waive the requirements of the bylaw, then there would have to be at minimum some direction from council to do so, presumably by resolution. It would be my suggestion, but I would bow to the clerk and her knowledge of these things. I would suggest that if you're going to make a change, make it a temporary change pending the outcome of the Transportation Master Plan, so that once the master plan is brought forward and adopted by council, then there will hopefully be a consistent set of rules that will apply across the township to guide all parties in the future.
Thank you, Director Becky. Okay, there seems to be a possible solution to this. Imagine it's something I'm asking the clerk that we probably want to not try to deal with this very minute. Or do you have some input on the possibility of a resolution?
Yeah, sure. If a resolution was going to come before council today, there would need to be a 2/3 motion, 2/3 support to read the motion, a mover and seconder, and language put forward. If not, it could come back. There could be a direction for staff to bring a resolution forward to the next committee or council meeting by consensus. But if we're going to enact any action today, it needs to be a 2/3 motion.
I see two new hands up. I'm not sure who was first. I want to go to Councilor Nishikawa. It looks like you were.
Thank you. I would request that we do move this forward if we can get the 2/3 agreement, because otherwise we wouldn't be approving it until March or maybe February. And in fact, we wouldn't be dealing with the issue at the time. I'm not in favor of waiting until we go through the big master plan issue. This is a very unique issue to this area, and I'd like to address it that way. So I'm hoping that council will support moving forward this request today.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Nishikawa. Councilor Zavitz, your hand is up as well.
Thank you, and through you to you, I suppose. I guess my clarification would be required in terms of, is there any immediacy? I think I did hear Mr. Booth indicate that the boats for this winter were actually already located off of the Township Landing. So I'm not unsure, and I shouldn't be asking him any more questions. Through you, is there an immediacy to this, and or is this, as I understand it, it's probably for next year and beyond? That being, I don't believe it's our practice as a township in the spring, summer, fall to remove a boat that's sitting at this landing or Whiting's Beach. If this is new, we certainly haven't done that. So I wonder if I could get some clarification on the immediacy of this. If he's would vote right now to do this immediately, and or contemplated in the Transportation Master Plan for next season, winter, that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zavitz. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to Mr. Booth. If we were able to get you this relief today, is it too late to drag the boats back and get them on site so you can use them this winter?
No, it's not too late. Because we haven't had significant snowfall, I don't see any issue with the folks that want to come up at Christmas and New Year's to take their boat down to the landing and put it in and then put it back where they were accustomed to leaving it, as opposed to dragging it back up to Currie Street. If that was acceptable, those folks on the island would certainly be very pleased with that.
All right, well, let me, thank you very much for that. My sense is that if we can, we should today. But let me just quickly canvass. I mean, is everybody in favor? We're going to have to take about a 5-minute break. We're going to give our Director of Legislative Services the opportunity to draft something for consideration. We will have to, 2/3 of us agree to walk it on now. We'll have to have a mover and a seconder. Does everybody want to take that step right now and get this resolved while we're on it? Show of hands. I think we've got consensus there. In fact, that's good. Okay. Thank you very much to the booths. We are, oh, sorry, Councillor Edwards, your one hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm in favor of moving this forward. And I wonder, just so that other people aren't storing boats there, that whoever is going to be there, just register it with the township so they know whose boats there. And that's something simple, that we have a list of all the boats that will be there this winter. And I would support that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Councillor Lavitz.
Oh, Councillor Zavitz, I can't see that corner. Go ahead, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. I'd be happy to move this motion forward if there was a seconder. Thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa, you're the seconder. All right, we're going to take a break for 5 minutes. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to thank the booths for joining us and raising this issue. And we will come back in 5 minutes with hopefully a resolution that everyone is comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I don't want to be the one to have to dash your hopes, but having looked at this, there are some issues that we need to resolve. The primary one being that the restriction, sorry. Oh, I'm not on mute. Councilor Roberts, can you not hear me?
No, no, yeah, just want to unmute. Rob was unmuted, so it was an echo. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, let me start again. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it looks like this is a more complicated issue than a simple resolution is going to fix. The instrument that is precluding you from keeping your boats there is actually a bylaw. Bylaws are a lot more complicated and require public notice to bring on and make effective. And so at the present time, I think the general understanding, and this is going to open this for discussion with anybody who might feel differently, is that we're going to have to put it over a month and come up with whatever documentation we need to amend that bylaw. Presumably, we would have to give notice to the public before we can amend the bylaw. And obviously, you're going to have a lot more snow to deal with at the end of all of that trail than you do right now. I'll put it back to both the mover and the seconder on a proposed resolution. If you feel differently, we can consider doing a resolution and seeing whether or not we can get it walked on with 2/3 approval. But certainly the understanding at this point in time is that what we're trying to do is amend a bylaw, which is a lot more complicated than we can accomplish without giving notice to the public and by a simple resolution. All right, we'll start with Councillor Burry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Comment. This seems overly bureaucratic, and I get it. Could we just not enforce the bylaw to let these folks get to the island for Christmas and New Year's and figure this out? This is clearly an unintended consequence of the bylaw, which wasn't anticipated. That's why it's unintended consequences. But this seems overly harsh to the folks of the island, without that being the intention. So if we could just, I know we're not allowed to instruct bylaw and not enforce a bylaw, but the bylaw guys don't enforce all the bylaws, as we know. So maybe just like blind eye on this one until March, and then we can fix it.
I guess. I mean, thank you for your input. I really don't know how we effect that. We can all agree to one thing, but we're counting on somebody else stepping away from their responsibility to make sure it gets put into effect. That's what we're trying to do, is make the normal and appropriate amendments so that this thing isn't a question. Mr. Pink, you've lit your screen, so go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, and good afternoon, Council. I think just to provide a bit of clarity, hopefully that's helpful. I don't think it's meant to be bureaucratic, and it's not entirely because it's a complicated process. I think Council can give direction to bylaw staff to put a temporary pause on certain enforcement actions, and staff can likely gain the correct section. I think the issue more so at hand is Council needs to be cognizant of some of the merits of consistency and the fact that some enforcement activities are as a result of complaints. And Council has run into, I'm sure those returning councillors can recall certain situations, particularly with parking, when changes to bylaws are directed or amended with very little process or public notification. I don't believe this matter was even listed on the agenda. I don't think any member of the community would be aware of what's being discussed prior to. And again, providing direction to no longer enforce that section may not sit well with other members of the community who feel that section of the bylaw should be enforced. So it's a suggestion that perhaps a pause and going through the proper process may be prudent in this case. But again, we're at the will of Council. If you wish to direct staff to, whether by resolution or amendment to the bylaw, to not enforce that section, staff will do accordingly. Hope that's helpful, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pink. Councilor Nishikawa, you're next.
Thank you. To you, I am requesting that we either ask bylaw to step aside, or I'm willing to take the risk. We've done this, maybe not, we do it at district all the time, 2/3 vote, we get to vote on it. I don't believe we're going to have great pushback. Again, even if we were to say to limit the size of the vote, and I would have to, again, I'm still back to the tinny situation, like the basic getting there. This wasn't about a bunch of motorboats showing up and people renting out their cottages and all those other things, problems that we have had in the summertime. I don't believe I'll take the risk as that counselor in the area that we're not bringing great harm, but in fact, we may bring great joy. And if whatever direction staff want to take, I believe, whether we, again, ask them to, I have a problem with us asking the bylaw officer to not do his job. That's why I wanted to bring a motion forward, quite frankly, because I've always been told, I don't get to tell bylaw what to do, and unless it's through a resolution. So I'm a little bit confused about Mr. Pink's comments, but either way, I hope that council allows us to move forward.
Thank you, Councilor Nishikawa. Mr. Pink, you're back on.
Thank you, Worship. Just to clarify, to make sure there's no confusion by Councilor Nishikawa and certainly all of council, what I don't believe is appropriate is individual councilors approaching bylaw officers and instructing them what to enforce and what not to enforce. You'll see in my orientation tomorrow, highly recommend against doing so. However, as a council as a whole, you have the ability to pass resolutions, bylaws, and direct staff accordingly, and council as a single body can do so. So hope that helps clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Pink. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands up. So we're not at an impasse, but we certainly would still need to have somebody make a motion with a seconder to try to walk on a resolution, which is not what we really need to affect this the right way, I will say. But if it carries, it may actually give the desired outcome of allowing these boats to be stored there and used over the Christmas break.
So who's moving and who's seconding?
I'm sorry?
Is anyone moving and seconding?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are we back to who's moving and who's seconding and the language that we want to approve? Councilor Nishikawa, you're moving?
Well, or Councillor Zabit, so I believe that we're still thinking the same thing. I guess my language would be, and if we were to get more specific, we could actually even note the size of the vessel, for instance. So like you wouldn't have a 23 or 30-foot boat sort of thing. And I would look if we could have the delegate back on and make a suggestion of what size that boat would be. That could be part of the resolution. Because it is a transportation, it's a mode of transportation. Like I don't want us to believe that this is just, it is a mode of transportation to somebody's property. So whether that's, I don't know, my tinnies are only so big, so I can't use those as an example because those are more or less big enough for us to carry around. But I just would look to the delegate for suggestions on that part.
All right, before we go to the delegate for that, I'm not sure the size of the boat, I'm not sure how the size of the boat impacts this, quite frankly. I just don't make the connection. We're either in a position where we're going to pass a resolution to allow this to happen. I don't know that we're going to name a specific boat or identify a specific boat. It would seem to me that it's whoever wants to use this facility to access their water access property over the next few weeks or months that would be allowed to do it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. Perhaps it's not the boat size or implications as much as it is the time allowed. If we were to your words, allow a window of opportunity for this particular landing that would run from December 15th until March 15th. That would get the job done. There's not many people clamoring. I'm not getting any phone calls from people wanting to use their boats on icy Lake Muskoka. So I can tell you that this is such a minimal piece. I think that Councillor Burry's very well put words. It is almost an unintended consequence. People didn't get a chance to 2.0 to gear up for the fact that we are actually enforcing a bylaw that we've had for quite some time. And so in that regard, I would obviously first move or second something that would get this job done for this particular place without impacting the whole township, thus the March sort of scenario.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks, Councillor Zavitz. Councillor Edwards, your hand is up as well.
Thank you very much. Could we pass a moratorium on that for say 6 months to get a staff report coming back on that? And that way we could let them use it for the winter, get a staff report coming back in, and then we can adjust the bylaw accordingly. So that they could use it for the winter. And yet what we're doing is asking for a future staff report, and we'll just have to, that we will not enforce it for 6 months. Thank you.
So I would suggest, why don't we have David draft a motion that'll come back under new business, and we'll move to the next item.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Unless there's anybody else, and I don't see any hands up, I certainly think we understand the situation. We're going to try and find a solution. We're going to ask Director Pink to draft a resolution that will allow this behavior, either by forbearing on on enforcement or however we decide to do it. We will bring that back to this council under new business later on this afternoon, and give it some time, give it due consideration at that point in time. We'll still need 2/3 resolution to get it on the docket, and obviously then a majority vote to see it carry. And I think everybody's hope is that we can find a way to make this work. So thank you again to Al. Sorry, I thought I saw a hand up. No. Thank you very much to the booths. Appreciate this. We are going to move on to other business in the meantime while that resolution is being drafted, and we will bring it back to this table hopefully within an hour or so when we get to new business. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6. There's no other public comment, by the way, so we'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda. Do I have a resolution on that one? Just gotta find it. I'll read the resolution, see if anybody has any questions or comments. Be it resolved, moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the December 14, 2022 consent agenda, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number 1, the November 9, 2022 council minutes. Number 2, November 18, 2022 special council minutes. Number 3, November 22, 2022 inaugural council minutes. Number 4, the November 25, 2022 special council minutes. And number 5, the December the 1st, 2022 special council minutes. Anyone have any comments, Any questions? Councillor Moyer Kent.
Just a simple matter on the 9th and the 18th. None of the new council members were at those meetings. I didn't know if we can vote on something when we weren't in attendance. We can? Okay, fine, done.
Okay, so any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Nobody object. All right, I'll put that aside. Okay, the next one is, there are two other items of business we've come to. Number 1, 7A, consideration of a resolution to appoint the vice chair for the planning committee of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And I will read it. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that Councillor Alan Edwards be appointed as vice chair of the planning committee for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. Any objections? None. Okay. I'm sorry? All right, 7B, resolution to appoint the vice chair of the General Finance Committee for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that Councillor Guy Burry be appointed as vice chair of the General Finance Committee for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Any opposed? Councillor Moore can't oppose. Thank you. All right. The next one on the docket is number 8A, a report from the Director of Public Works re the award of contract regarding the Raymond Community Center washroom upgrades. And I see Mr. Becking, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, tenders for the upgrades to the Raymond Community Center washroom were called in accordance with township policy. The report itemizes the compliant bids that were received. You should be aware that there were 2 additional bids that were received that were deemed to be non-compliant and therefore were rejected. Prior to making the recommendation for rejection, both tenders were reviewed by both the architect and by the township solicitor, and both concurred that the infractions were significant enough to make the bids invalid. On the basis of the foregoing, the recommendation is to award the contract to R&G Construction in the amount of $299,950.
Thank you, Director Becking. Anybody with comments? I see Councilor Nishikawa, your hand is up.
Thank you. I can't approve this today. I'd like to look at the overall budget, and I just, it seems like in a large amount of money, and I think we should have a further discussion about the overall plans for the municipality.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I think we should go ahead with it. First of all, it's a warming center. Secondly, at General Finance, we just took kitchens out of Allswater, out of Windermere, and out of Hecla. So where are people going to get a meal? I would be supportive of Walker's Point, like the other councillors over there do. This is a warming center. It has a full kitchen that is compliant, and it is well used. There's about over 3,000 visits a year to that hall, and quite a few dinners and breakfasts are done there. And also, just remind everyone, we had a $100,000 grant going towards that as well. So I think it's necessary. It was approved by the last council. I think we should go ahead with it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Councillor Becking, or Councillor, Director Becking, you had a comment? You're muted.
Beg your pardon. Thank you, Your Worship. Further to Councillor Edwards' comments, I will point out for the benefit of council that the project is subject to a $100,000 grant from the federal government. Failure to proceed with the award of the tender at this time would put in jeopardy that $100,000.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. So two things, I guess. First of all, if we forfeit the grant, we're still out $200,000. I guess my question would be to Director Becking, the condition of the washrooms such that are currently there, such that they require replacement. And again, I don't want to be redundant because I know this has been before us prior. Are the current state of the washroom such that the building is uninhabitable, or is this an enhancement to create 4 washrooms where there's 2 now? That would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Becking.
If I may, Your Worship, in response to the councilor's questions, you'll recall for the members of the previous council, we did consider this at some length. The object of the exercise for the project is to make the washrooms accessible in accordance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. And the condition of the grant that we are receiving from the federal government is that the washrooms upgrades have to be to full AODA standards. Another comment that I will make with respect to the grant, in order for us to be able to avail ourselves of the grant, the work must be fully completed by June 30 of this year. And because of statutory holdbacks and other items, that means that the work has to be substantially complete by April 30. So hence the need to proceed at this time.
Thank you, Director Becking. Councillor Mazan. I'll go on mute.
Thank you, and through you. This has been, for those who are newer to this particular ask or initiative, this has been long discussed at the council table and was agreed upon to move forward. Not because the bathrooms and the community was saying they needed, and I'll quote them, the Taj Mahal of washrooms, but because of conditions that are put upon certain applications. And in this case, as we look to any of our infrastructure, we are going to be having to consider accessibility needs. Similar to actually, quite frankly, what Councillor Nishikawa was talking about earlier today. It is something that needs to be contemplated. So our previous council had agreed that this, despite the fact that it seems like a large sum of money, it was a good investment into one of our community centers that has historically not had a lot of time and attention put forward. So similar to Councillor Edwards, I would support this initiative, even though I realize the pressures that we are under. And this has been well considered, thought out, and debated up until this time. So I support the recommendation by staff to go with the bid that they are recommending. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mazan. I see no other questions, so I'm going to read the resolution. Make sure I have the right one. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Moyer-Kent. Be it resolved that contract T-2022-51 for the accessibility upgrades to the Raymond Community Center washrooms be awarded to the lowest compliant bidder, R&G Construction, for the bid price of $299,950, excluding HST. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the work. Councilor Nishikawa, you have a question?
I just wanted to have an understanding of what the overage allowance what was put into this. It may be in the document, but I don't recall after reading.
That's fair, Councillor Becking, or Director Becking.
There is no contingency allowance in the figures that you have before you. Again, for previous members of the council, you'll recall that the original budget was 250,000 and it was subsequently increased to 300,000 in acknowledgement of the challenges that we've faced over the course of the year with respect to construction costs increasing. The proposed award is within the approved budget, and we will work with the contractor to manage the budget allocations accordingly.
Sorry, I was muted. Councillor Edwards, I see your hand up.
And if I recall, the money is in reserves for that too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the resolution has been read. Can I call the vote? All in favor? And all opposed? That carried. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. We're on to bylaws, section 9. I'm going to just keep on going here unless somebody feels the need for a break. I don't think we should. We just get going. And I'm going to invite some assistance from down the table here. On number 9A, bylaw 2022-165, Allison.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Bylaw 2022-165 is to stop up, close, and convey a portion of an original road allowance to an abutting landowner. This application was previously approved by General Finance Committee in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Chriselle. Now, does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Bosenworth. I'll hit mute. Hang on.
For the neophyte here, could you explain what that means?
Through the chair. So we received an application from an abutting landowner to purchase an original road allowance that lies next to their property. With those applications, we do need to bring them forward to General Finance Committee to receive approval. So that application was approved. The applicant is required to get a survey done. So that survey has been completed. The legal proceedings have been completed, and we're now ready to pass a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey that road allowance. Thank you.
What are we allowed to disclose the price that we pay?
Yep, the price, actually, I believe. So the price is at a rate per square foot. So it is 75 cents per square foot.
Aggregate? Total price?
I would have to pull that information up.
Yeah, if we want to follow up with information, I mean, the price on these is set by our own bylaws. There's a prescribed price for it. I guess we just need to know the square footage and if it's important to the decision.
No, it's not. If that's
so, thank you.
Through the chair, the price, the cost for the land in this application is $12,948. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read a resolution. Make sure I get the right one. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-165, being a bylaw for the purpose of closing that part of the original road allowance between the geographic townships of Watt and Monk, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes, in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-26898, be read a first, second, and a third time, and finally passed. All those in favor? That carries. No, anyone object? I didn't see all the hands. Oh, I think that's good. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We've got one more, or two more, three more for Michelle, I think. All right, the next one is number 9A2, license agreement Tupper, 2022-118 is the bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, bylaw 2022-118 is to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a license agreement for an encroachment located on a township road allowance. This application was previously approved by General Finance Committee in May. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishal. Okay, everybody has, I presume, read this, understands why we need to give the license agreement. Do I have any questions? I don't see any. Councillor Bosenworth.
Same questions. How much is the rent? How much will the township gain from this?
All right, I will defer to Vishal on that.
And that will be a repeat question on any item like this.
So the annual fee is included in the report. So it is $750 per year, or $640 for the first 5 years of the agreement, with amounts increasing by $160 every 5 years thereafter.
I'll say again with the mute off. Anybody with any other questions? All right, I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-118, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a license agreement between the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and Ryan Ashley Tupper and Angela Diane Tupper, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carried. Thank you very much. All right, what's next? Priscilla, I think it's still you, right? License agreement 2022-117.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, bylaw 2022-117 is to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a license agreement for encroachments located on a township road allowance. This application was also previously approved by General Finance Committee in May. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And any questions? Councillor Bosenworth.
Same question on this one and the next one.
All right, thank you.
So the applicant is required to pay an annual fee of $640 for the first 5 years. Amounts increase every 5 years thereafter by $160. Thank you.
And are there any other questions? I see none. I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-117, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a license agreement between the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and 1965385 Ontario Inc., be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you. All right, Chriselle, you're on one more time. I bet you know the price too.
Thank you, Your Worship. So bylaw 2022-179 is to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a license agreement for an encroachment that's located on an original road allowance. This application was approved by General Finance Committee last December. For this application, there is no annual fee, as this encroachment is to provide the property owners with access to their property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No. All right, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-179, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a license agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and Alan McGee and Christine McGee, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All those in favor? Anyone oppose? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, turning the page. I see, Chriselle, you're not going anywhere yet. And you've got 2022-197, a Shore Road Allowance Road, I think. Is that right? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 2022-197 is to stop up, close, and convey an original shore road allowance on Lake Muskoka. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much. Just on page 39 there, it shows two and that parcels there. That's a unique property with two, like a second finger coming down, just so that if anybody had a question. And I can also answer Councillor Bosworth. It's $18,764.55.
It's in the report.
It's in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Very helpful. Thank you. Okay, make sure I'm reading the right one. Make sure I'm not on mute. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Moyer Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-197, being a bylaw for the purpose of closing that part of the original Shore Road allowance in front of Lot 29, Concession 12, Geographic Township of Monk, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes in the District Municipality of Muskoka, designated as Parts 1, 2, and 3 on Plan 35R-26936, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. No questions. Sorry, Councillor Bosenworth.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be obstreperous on this. How do we determine the price?
I'm going to let
The price is a cost per square foot. The cost for Lake Muskoka is $1.50 per square foot.
How did we come up with the $1.50 a square foot? That was really my question.
So those rates were established with the policy. They do get updated every year when the fees and bylaws, with the fees and charge bylaw gets increased. So for Lake Muskoka, Lake Rossa, and Lake Joseph, they are category 3, which is the higher cost.
And those rates would have been adjusted in the last 12 months. Sure.
Are there any relation to market price?
I'm going to defer. Sorry, we got Director Donaldson stepping in to bail us out on this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just try to add a little bit of context. So the policy that we have for the township regarding user fees and charges calls for a biannual review of the bylaw. So the previous update would have been done for 2022. The clerk's department, the legislative services department, does a survey of neighboring municipalities, looks at other cost drivers with respect to how much we could derive from proceeds from sale of road allowances. I would say it's not tied to market value. It's really a cost that's kind of looked around the municipality, around the district, in terms of what others are charging and what seems to be a reasonable go rate in terms of those properties. Thank you.
Clerk Terry.
I'll just also make the point that we're kind of talking about apples and oranges here. This is not a vacant piece of land on the water. This is an original shore road allowance. So the market price, it wouldn't be in a free market scenario where anybody could make an offer on a shore road allowance in front of your particular cottage.
I'm happy with those answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody remember if I read this? I did. All right, then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. All right, Rochelle, you have one more. This one's actually a flooded road allowance, shore allowance, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, bylaw 2022-201 is to convey the flooded portion of an original shore road allowance on Lake Muskoka. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Seeing none. Oh, yes, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. I think that it would be just helpful for a 1-minute overview of the difference between an original shore road allowance and a flooded original shore road allowance, if you could. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. So the flooded portion of the original shore road allowance is only available to purchase if a property owner has a 2-story boathouse or a boathouse with living accommodations. So that is the difference between purchasing a flooded portion versus a non-flooded portion of an original shore road allowance. In terms of purchasing the flooded portion, we also require property owners to receive approval from the Ministry of Natural Resources to also purchase the crown lake bed underneath the boathouse as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll read the resolution. Sorry, Councillor Bosenworth.
Is it a different price?
I don't know. Rochelle.
Through you, Your Worship. No, so the flooded portion is also calculated at a rate per square foot. Usually this rate is pretty low in terms of buying. So we do have a minimum purchase price of $1,500, which is what's happening in this case.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions. I will read. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-201, being a bylaw for the purpose of selling surplus land described as part of the original shore road allowance in front of Lot 19, Concession 6, closed by bylaw number 83-57, registered as instrument number DM 174698 of the former geographic township of Monk, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes, in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as parts 3, 4, and 5 on Plan 35R-23965, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All in favor? Anybody opposed? That carries. Thank you. All right, I'm going to redeclare my conflict and step aside on this one. I do have a resolution that I'll leave here for you if you want. I'll leave the room. Thank you.
We have to change chair.
Okay, so I am on item number 7. And this is to appoint members to the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Public Library Board. So moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-186, being a bylaw to establish and appoint members to the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Public Library Board, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. I have somebody with their hand up. Councillor Edwards. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Thank you very much. It's just actually procedures. I thought we normally went into closed session and the members of the public were picked, and then we read it, putting everyone on it rather than just putting on something, a counselor, and then 6 blank spaces. And that maybe if we could clarify that. It's the same goal for fence viewers, property standard, and committee of adjustment.
Thank you very much for that question. I am going to turn that over to the clerk to respond. Thank you.
So that's not, in fact, the way that we've typically handled this. We do leave a notation on the agenda in case a member of council would like to speak about or discuss the individual names, which you've all had access to see in your closed session materials. If anyone would like to go into closed session to speak about any identifiable individuals, we can in fact do that. But if we're passing the bylaw as a routine measure, we will pass it as is, and the names will then become public.
Councillor Edwards, do you have a supplemental?
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I thought in the past we had brought the names forward, and that it's passing a bylaw that's blank. And I think it would be better passed the other way, but it's just my opinion on it. But you just don't normally put a blank check out there. Same with names.
Okay, so the chair can make a ruling on how we'll proceed.
And the chair will make a ruling. I think I need to follow the direction I'm getting from clerk right now, that this is the way we will go forward, given we've all been able to go and see the names enclosed. I'm going to follow what I have read out at this point. So I'm going to come back. I believe I've read the motion. Did I finish it and complete?
You did.
Okay. So I'll read it one more time just so everybody is clear. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-186, being a bylaw to establish and appoint members to the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Public Library Board, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Councillor Zavitz?
Councillor Zavitz, are you opposed?
Oh, thank you. To Councillor, and I know that now it's voted, so it's too late, but to Councillor Edwards' point, I mean, we're in the public domain. We're looking at, as the public is looking at an item that's redacted. What if I had a problem with number 4? Do I say in public, oh, sorry, 4 minutes ago, I do have a problem with number 4. How do we walk that back? And I guess that's a question for the clerk. I mean.
Yeah, thank you through you. I am going to ask the clerk to respond to that. Thank you very much.
So that's precisely why the discretionary exemption exists, is so if somebody would like to go into closed session, so we can discuss the actual names of the appointments, if there's any issue, then we can do so. So those discussions aren't happening in the public forum. The same way, if we were discussing an employee individually, we may go into closed session and do that. So this vote was already taken. So I think that puts an end to this question, but we have 2 other motions just like this. So if there is any other concern that anyone would like to move into closed session to discuss an identifiable individual, we can do so.
Just not to be argumentative.
Supplemental, Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, but to put a fine point on it, if it's very rare that a counselor can somehow ask on their own to go to a close and create a closed session situation. So this is, I just find, I think to Councillor Edwards' point, it's much more streamlined to go the other way, have the discussion and then bring it out here. Otherwise, this is kind of obtuse. That, when was the last time I could put my hand up and say, I want to go into closed session right now?
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I actually think that that's a conversation we can have, whether it's leading up to these next two or not. Because Councillor Zavitz is correct, like in the sense that we have rarely had the opportunity to put up our hand and say, I'd like to go into closed. So for us, this seems unusual, but that seems to me a process thing for us to look at for the future. So
Process we're looking at, but Councillor Nishikawa has a question.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
Well, I just want to say that, and thank you to you, I guess. The agenda gets put out. We get the information. We're told there's information in the closed session. Look at it. If you have concerns, contact the clerk, and the clerk will make the arrangements. We've done that for many, many years. It's not a difficult thing to do, but I also want to point out, and this is for a bigger discussion, we have to be very careful about going into closed session too often. And in fact, if anyone ever has the chance to read up on George Cuff's information and how to run council meetings and such, and even we've had the CAO of Ottawa do a session with all of district council, like all of our councillors, not this past term, the term before, that he said you should avoid closed session as much as possible because it's not an open forum.
Okay, so I do appreciate these comments. I am going to suggest that we move on now to the next bylaws, but the points have been noted, at least by myself.
No, I was
Councillor
going to
Edwards,
ask.
last word.
I didn't finish because I do want to say that there's got to be more, and that we should be, if we're going to be having these kind of concerns, that we should be bringing this to general finance and asking those questions in an open way, and that I guess education gets further brought forward. Sorry if I took too long.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
The reason I brought this up, when you go into the next ones for fence sitters and everything else like that, in closed session, you'll notice there's two names there that we haven't talked about for the fourth appointment. And I think it's premature passing something with a blank in it when you can go into closed session. It's on our closed session agenda, and we should be following procedure. And this has been done before. This isn't something new. But I'll leave it up to council. But I can't support a resolution with just blanks on it. Thank you.
Okay.
So I will speak.
Thank you.
So I appreciate the concerns. In my time here, this is exactly what we've done every single time that we have this situation arise. I look forward to the extra training on closed and open sessions each of you will get at the district training session on January 13th. I think it'll be helpful to alleviate some of these concerns and get some more understanding on the uses of closed session. Closed session is to be used if there is a matter to discuss. We don't go into closed session as a right, just in case someone would like to discuss this. So I'm asking you now, it would be my suggestion through the chair that we go into closed session if anybody would like to discuss information relating to the exemption listed in the Act for an identifiable individual for both the fence viewers and the Property Standards Committee bylaw and the Committee of Adjustment bylaw. And if so, then we will in fact go into closed session.
So I'm happy to take the lead on managing this, but do I now need to hand it back to the mayor, or am I still in this chair?
You can hand it back to the mayor.
Or is it better for me to manage this because he'll walk in?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that probably makes sense.
Okay. So is there, I guess the question following the clerks. Is there a reason, given her guidance, for us to go into closed session now for items 8, 9, and 10? Is there a reason, a specific reason that we need to go in to discuss? Councillor Edwards.
It's my view that there is a reason, because there's two names that were posted in the thing for one position. And I think council should be aware that there were two people for the final position. And that it's as simple as that. I don't care which one is picked. It's just a case of it is on the agenda. It's on the closed session agenda, if everyone had read it. And I don't know, nobody knows which one is being picked, and it should be discussed. And
Okay, so there is a specific reason for
session.
that specific item, and that.
So let me just speak one more time. So the one, we can, just a refresher, we can only go into closed session to discuss a matter related to an exemption included in the Municipal Act. So the exemption that we've claimed is that personal information about an identifiable individual. So if we want to talk about the identities of those two individuals, we'll do that in closed. If we want to talk about the structure of the committee and how many people can be appointed, we can do that in open. So I just need to clarify the nature of the request that Councillor Edwards has.
Councillor Edwards.
Well, looking at page 49, there's 4 names. We have 3 already, and there's 2 in waiting. And I'd like to know which one is the one in waiting. It's as simple as that. That is a closed session matter. You are talking about it. If you check the rules and regulations, it's identifiable individuals. And that's why we should be looking at and that it's a procedural thing. And that, like I say, and that if we don't pass anything, it's, oh, well, we'll throw it in after. I mentioned this at the last council meeting. It's the same thing. And that there was resolutions read without names on them. And that, and if you're looking at that procedure, and that it should be checked. If council want to go and vote and that's fine. But I think it should have been in closed session when it was on our closed session agenda. So it is on the agenda. Thank you. So why go afterwards?
So just through you, Chair, I think Councillor Edwards has asked you to make a ruling, either the mayor or the chair who's sitting, the chair, on how to move forward here. So we're either going to move into closed session because we've had
Can we be part of the conversation?
Thank you, Councillor Nishikawa. I've been put on the hot seat without even being prepared here. So, the question is, do we need to go into closed session to discuss one of these items as it relates to 2 names that have been put forward for positions, thinking that perhaps only one was being chosen for a specific, but that then leads us into the expansion of a potential committee. So it's my understanding that that's not the case. So I'm not sure that we need to go into close to talk that this particular situation, because it isn't about individuals. So
maybe I can clarify also.
Yes.
Maybe this helps clarify what is before you in your materials is appointing both names to the committee. There are minimum numbers of people that are in bylaw that can be on the committee, and the proposal is to appoint both of them. If we'd like to talk about that or have debates about those identified individuals, then let's move into closed with the rest of the matters that's on the agenda to speak about that. But maybe Councillor Edwards can clarify if he would like to speak about that in closed.
Yes, thank you. At the last meeting, we put 3 people on. And now you have 4 on. I don't see the 5th on there. And that, and do we need and that's 6 people on the Committee of Adjustments. And that, I don't know, that I'll leave that up to the mayor. And actually, the mayor should be taking the chair again, as he only excused himself from.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask, because this is information that I don't fully have either. So I'm at this point going to ask if I can take myself out. I feel like you are up to speed on what the issue is currently.
Me?
Yes.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
But, okay, I'll let staff.
Or how we got here.
And that, to the mayor then, what I had asked is because I see on the defense viewers, property standards and the Committee of Adjustment, 3 names and a blank. Normally, and it was on our closed session agenda, there was 2 extra names. Now I see that they're talking about putting 5 on rather than the 4. Or if they're only going with the 4, we should be talking about it in closed session, coming out and then putting the motions forward. And but like I say, I'll go with what council say. We have done this before and brought names up and then come out. And that it's very unusual to be voting on something that there's a blank. But if that's the way council want to handle it, I'm fine with that.
Sorry, I unfortunately, I missed how we got here. So I'm trying to get caught up. You may have already covered all this off while I was out of the room. My understanding is if you refer to the closed session agenda or supplementary agenda, you will see the list of names that we're proposing to appoint. If you have a problem with those names and we need to go into close to resolve it, that is a legitimate reason to go into close. What I'm not clear about is what's being asked. Are we asking whether we have the ability to appoint?
I think for you, Mayor, I think we've identified the issue. If we
Okay.
can let Deputy Clerk Hollows screen share and maybe speak as well. Thank you. Councillor Edwards, you really do read your agendas. I can see that because we uploaded the wrong Schedule A. This is the correct Schedule A. And so the 3 appointees are there that were appointed last month. And then we have 2 proposed members from the community that have put in applications that are deemed to be qualified. The mayor has approved those applications. Council has been notified by a confidential memo. And so there is space, 2 spaces there to insert those members' names upon approval of this council. If you wish to discuss those private individuals in terms of them as individuals, we can insert 1 member just needs to indicate that they would like to do that. And we will go into closed session right now and do that. So apologies, because it was a mistake on our end, for sure.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that. So,
Councillor
Zavitz, you're on first. You're up first.
Thank you, and through you. When was the last time we had 6 individuals on the Committee of Adjustment?
5. There's 6.
Well, yeah, there's a chair. Who's the chair? If there's 5 names, should I presume that one of those black boxes is Councillor Edwards? Exactly. So I'm just asking a very simple, my public's going to call me and ask me, why is there 6 people on Committee of Adjustment? Or perhaps that's our standard. I don't believe it is.
Deputy
Okay.
Clerk Hollows, can you help us with that question?
I'll do my best. There are 2 bylaws that are passed with regard to the composition of Committee of Adjustment. One pertains to council members.
that are appointed because their appointments are reviewed, I believe, annually. Each year, the bylaw will come back to you to confirm the councillor in question. Citizen members are appointed for the term of council for 4 years. So we separate the two bylaws for that reason. With respect to the number of members on the committee, the Planning Act only stipulates minimums. It's at the discretion of the mayor and council to adjust the numbers on the bylaw, the number of members on the committee. So in this case, it was determined that the mayor proposed all 5 members be included on the committee this time. You have the names. If you want to discuss them further in private, we can. But the proposal is to have 6 members on Committee of Adjustment for this term of council, 1 being a councillor and 5 being citizen members.
Thank you for that. Councillor Edwards, your hand is up next.
Okay, no, thank you. You see, when I read my agenda on page 49, it just showed 4. And that, now I see there's 5 on. If the mayor would like to put 5 on, that is fine. The question is, are you going with 5? Because 6 makes it that a lot of motions could go down if it's 3-3. The other way with 5 on, then it's a vote. But I'll bow to the mayor. If he wants 5 on, then we don't have to go into closed session. Thank you.
Yeah, the 5 that are proposed had been run through me, and I'm recommending them for council approval. Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Well, I mostly just wanted to say that I support the mayor's decision of actually adding an additional person, because I've noticed over the years that people are on holidays and things like that, and then it gets to be a smaller. So I don't have a challenge with any of the names that have been brought forward, and I don't have a challenge with the decision of increasing the number of people on the committee. And I'd ask if we could call for the vote, please. Not so formal, but you know what I'm talking about, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What vote have we not done? Or
The fence viewer is the committee of adjustment.
and we do them 3 separately?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I've got 3 to read. We'll do them one at a time. First one is fence viewers. So moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Sorry, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-205, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-188, being a bylaw to appoint fence viewers for the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and to set appropriate remuneration and administration fees, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. I see no questions. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Number 2 in a series of 3 is, which one is this? Property Standards Committee. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-206, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-187, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Property Standards Committee for the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and to set appropriate remuneration, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. No questions. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Last one, Committee of Adjustment. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-207, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-185, being a bylaw to establish and appoint private citizens as members to the Committee of Adjustment for the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All in favor? Any object, that carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Where are we here? I've lost my, here it is. So we're going to move into closed session. And we're going to adjust the technology so that it can be closed session. Do we need to take 5 minutes first?
Yeah, can you actually just read the future meeting schedule and highlight the bolded
Oh, all right.
pen, and then we'll move to closed session. Break.
And will we come back out of closed session so I can say a couple of words at the very end? Thank you. All right, we're going to read the future meeting schedule. Before we go into close, we're going to take a 5-minute break after this. We're going to go into close, and then we will be back. Future meeting schedule, planning committee. There will be one held December the 15th. That's tomorrow. That's 9 a.m. Committee of adjustment.
Oh, it's actually 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, sorry. Tomorrow's at 8:30 a.m. Planning committee. Is there not also one set aside for Friday as a contingency? There's a contingent meeting Friday as well, but I'm certain Councillor Bosenworth will get us through the agenda tomorrow. Of course. Committee of Adjustment meeting will be held on January the 16th, 2023, 9 a.m. General and Finance Committee, January the 17th, 2023 at 9 a.m. And that is different, isn't it? No,
Yes.
that had to be adjusted. That's not our normal rhythm, but there was a conflict and we had to adjust to suit that. Council meeting similarly will be held that afternoon at 1 p.m., January the 17th, 2023. And Planning Committee back on our regular schedule will be held on January the 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. All right, we're going to go and take a recess. We are going to read the resolution. Do I have one? Okay. I have a resolution that we're going to read to move ourselves into a closed session before we take a bit of a break. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that council move into closed session. Oh, the closed session convene at, I don't know what time it is. 3:50 p.m. For a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that is one matter. A proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality of a local or local board, one matter. Labor relations or employee negotiations, also one matter. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, 4 matters. And if required, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee, that would relate to the committee appointments, pursuant to section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act 2001. All in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you. All right, so we'll.